getting ready to get going. So let's just see what we got going on today. So all right. Let's see what we got here. Hi, Bambi. All right. Well, hello, everybody. This is your Talk About It podcast, where we just get together and do exactly what the name says. We just talk about it. I know that as things are opening up out there and we're no longer in quarantine and forced to be in house, that we have less people that are joining in. However, it looks like people are still seeing the videos and still keeping up with at least what's going on through video and later on in the YouTube. So we say hello to everybody that's actually joining us in live. And for those that are watching us later on, well, we glad to have you taking the time and watching our podcast. The Talk About It podcast, where we just sit down and discuss different subjects. Sometimes we have questions that people bring in, and sometimes we just talk amongst ourselves. Everything that's going on around or things that we might want to talk about. So we appreciate everybody that is joining in today. And we always take questions and we always try to discuss the questions, as long as the questions are not ones that are required a lot of time and a lot of Bible studying and all that. We don't shy away from it. We just try to keep the podcast exactly as we're going and what we're supposed to be doing. So God bless you, Sumi. I see you guys are already writing in and chatting and putting your comments in. So just God bless everybody. I'm never alone. Well, that's not true. I never. It's a statement you're not supposed to say. Yeah. I have been alone, but the podcast is intended to have people coming in, and we're actually looking forward to one day having more people sitting around the table and discussing different subjects. So, however, we have, as always, the crew that's always here on the podcast, and that's we have who we refer to as the voice, which is Michael, behind the controls and the computer, who cannot be seen by camera by his choice, but we do have a voice that we can hear.
Yes, sir. God bless everybody.
And we always have JJ on to my right, that we can sit down and discuss these different subjects and topics that we have today. So we are going to go into it. As we always say, if you have any questions or any comments regarding what we're talking about, feel free to welcome to do it. For those that are live, we will be able to address you right away. And for those that are watching it later, please feel free to comment. God bless. And comment below. And we will also address your comments, whether I decide to answer right away or we can come back later and discuss whatever it takes. So that being said, as I said, we have been talking about the podcast and all that. The idea, I mean, when we were in the middle of the quarantine, the podcast was just booming. Everybody was joining us in, and everybody was with us live, and because they could, but because they couldn't do anything else, so they had no choice but to join us in. And now as time is passing by, well, we got less people that join in live. However, like I said, we got people that are watching the podcast, so it becomes more of a conversation between us and what we want to talk about and all that. So unless people write the questions, then we can address those questions accordingly. However, we have been talking about this subject for a while, and it seems like we're always stuck at the subject, but it's because we never get an answer to the question, at least clear question, and how to define all these different things, or a clear understanding of all these questions and stuff like that. And we always mention the whole religion and the difficulties that we have dealing with people that just stay away from religion and are never really talking about religion, never really want to address religion. How we talk to these people and tell them that we are not religious people, and that we try not to be religious, and then go into explaining our beliefs, and then it goes down to sounding like religion. And then you have the issue at hand, which is us claiming that we are not a religious people. And don't get me wrong, there are many, many, many people in the church that are religious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that everybody who's a Christian is not religious. That's not the case. I don't identify myself as a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I think it all depends on what your definition of religion is,
Right.
and what your definition of being a religious is. Because I think that to some people's definition of what being religious is, I am religious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it all depends on what the definition of religious, being religious. Do I believe in a religion? I don't believe in a religion because if I address my belief as a religion, then it's almost like I just have one of the many religions that are around. So, this is one of the subjects that we always talk about. And we talked about a while ago that I wrote this book, What When the Church No Longer Works for Me. And the book itself is, let me read the back of the book, because I think it's interesting and what it says. And it goes in to say, after writing the books At My High Place and Pentecostal Resistance, which are two books that I wrote before, Pastor Jason Hernandez devotes his time and attention to religion. It is not a book about the many religions in the world, but speaks of the religious system hidden within the church.
Mm-hmm.
He dares to ask, what when the church stops working for me?
Mm-hmm.
While reading this book, you will find yourself analyzing your personal relationship with God. If you need an understanding of why you've lost the interest in church, or perhaps would like to know the reasons why it's getting so hard to continue in the ways of the Lord, maybe you know someone who needs to read the book, or just want to prepare on how to reply when people say things like, the church didn't work for me. This is the book for you. So that's the theory. The theory behind this book, and I'm not here to sell the book. I'm not going to sell the book. I have books available, and I don't even go around selling them. I think I give away more books than I sell, or that I have sold. But I think the idea is that there is a religious system within the church, hidden within the church. I can't wait to actually devote time and money into getting the stuff that I need. I no longer have a right ear.
Oh,
it's great. I think it's a connection, because they did the same thing to the other ones, but it's no big deal. I'll take it out. But that's the whole thing that we talk about. I mean, we spend a lot of time telling people that we're not religious, and I've taught my kids that we're not religious, and then you have your kids or people explain their church experience, their Christian experience, their believer experience, and it sounds a lot like religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when we start explaining to people what religion is all about, then all of a sudden you realize that, oh, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
we sound exactly like what we don't want.
Yeah.
And that's and we tell people that we want to get away from religion. I mean, we tell people we don't want religion. I was looking for a part of the book that talks about the whole religion thing and all that. But nevertheless, this is a conversation, and I just feel like right now both of you guys are staring at me and making me kind of nervous. So I'm feeling nervous. So I never feel, I will never want to feel, but the whole religious thing and religion and all that, I think you guys, you guys are more than welcome to chime in and speak whenever you feel in the spirit and within your guts to actually say something regarding this subject, because I think that we end up saying a lot. Bambi says she read the book twice. So I think it works out great. So I don't know. I mean,
I don't know about. I don't even know about you, but I know growing up in school, it was so difficult to kind of like teach people about the difference. And growing up, you know, someone would say, "Oh no, he's religious," and then, "Oh no, I'm not religious," and then, "Well, you go to a church, right? Yeah, you follow religion." Not really. Well, Christianity is a religion, and that was like so frustrating for me because I know in church, they would say a bunch, that we're not religious, but then at the same time, having to explain that when you're a kid in school, trying to explain that was so frustrating.
Because they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that even in the church itself, there are times that we start doing exactly that we're preaching against. And I see it the way is, in any organized, especially for church and stuff like that, when we have any sort of organization, we tend to pick up a lot of religious tendencies. When you're looking at relationship itself, the way I see it is, regardless of what's happening around in the church, there's an aspect that's personal. Outside of the church, there are things that you can do. There are things that you should be doing, and it's that personal aspect. I mean, we get together and, we give our services with people that have the same mentalities as us, the same beliefs as us. But if we only do that when we're in the church, then we fall into that religious thing. So, with a relationship, it's making that a bit personal. Even if I'm brought up in a household with certain beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
it's making those beliefs my own beliefs. I mean, at a certain point, we were brought up in the house, and there was an age where you sat us down and you even though we were brought up in the church, you told us legitimately what it was. I mean, there are a lot of people that kind of assume, hey, he'll just pick it up on the way because he's been brought up in this.
Mm-hmm.
No, you made it a clear point to us that, yeah, you guys were born with us going to church, and you guys have been brought up going to church. But this is a personal thing. I mean, you need to make the decision. You need to
Individual.
Yeah. I mean, according to the Bible, it's openly saying it, openly accepting it, and living that personally in your lifestyle. Whether your parents continue it, going along with them, or in some sad cases in which some parents leave the church. If you made that personal choice and you have that relationship, then you have that conviction to keep on going and doing what you've been doing, regardless of what anyone else does around you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it has to do. I think when you discuss the subject of religion or anything like that, I think it also has to do with the definition that a person has regarding what religion is. I mean, that's where it begins. What do you mean by religious? And I think that's the important part. So I mean, you start there. What is your definition,
Mm-hmm.
or the definition of religion? I mean, I can give you the definition of religion. I obviously have it here in the book, but the idea is not what the definition is. Is when you think of religion, what do you think of? And then you start realizing that, to some people, I think I don't know who it was. I think it was one of my sister-in-laws. I don't know which one, but one of my sister-in-laws would jokingly refer to going to church as going to la religión, and it was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a person that's in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a person in the church going, sorry, yo estaba en la religión. It was a joke, and it wasn't never said to me. It was something between my sister-in-law and my wife. And one time, my wife mentioned something about, oh yeah, I'm going to the religion or la religión or whatever. And I was like, yo, I'm telling you right now, you tell me that one more time, we won't have issues, because I find it so disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
to refer to go into whatever church related is to la religión. So I think that's the most disrespectful part of the whole drama and the whole issue with religion. So I think the first thing you have to do is identify what people are calling a religion. What are the people saying that is a religion? What are people saying that or when they say religious, what does it mean? And I don't know. Have you guys ever asked that question?
No, actually, that's that's a real good point to hear it from someone else's point of view. The way I see it is, religion is exactly that. Just a strict system or organization. You have your rules. You have this. You have that. So for me, a religion would be that exactly what we have, but without that personal aspect or that personal passion that you have. That's how I see religion. Just a exoskeleton, a structure of some sort with set rules, and you follow that. You don't have to ask questions, and that's it.
Yeah. No, he nailed it on the head. Just follow the rules, and you're set. Basically, I've asked other people, what do you think a religion is? People, the same people that I grew up with, saying, oh, you're from a religion. And once I had a better understanding of what a religion was, I asked them, what do you think a religion is? And then they said, oh, just following any god.
Well, I mean, I think at that particular moment that I am religious. So if your definition of somebody who's religious is somebody who believes in God, okay, then I'm religious because I believe in God. So, are you religious? What do you mean? I mean, that's the question that I will ask to anybody who says, "Yo, are you a religious person? What exactly do you mean by religious person? Do you believe in God? Oh, if that's your definition of a religious person, yes, I am. Of course, I believe in a God. So, if every time you tell me that I'm religious, you're talking about that I believe in God, well, then okay, no problem. If you referencing my Christianity as religion, and I understand what you mean, then I'm not going to battle definitions. I'm not gonna sit down and have a discussion about the definition or the interpretation of a definition or something like that, because then we're having petty arguments about soda and pop. Who calls it soda, who calls it pop? You know what I'm saying? Potato, tomato. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I really don't care. So, but that's why I said, I think one of the first things that whenever that point comes across to asking somebody, or when somebody says you're a religious person, I think that part of the conversation should be then, what do you mean by religious? Because, at your definition, I don't know. At your definition at the moment, I don't know, and I'm not going to call myself religious. Now, if you're calling religious somebody that believes in God, then yeah. But there's people out there that believe in God and don't follow any kind of.
Exactly.
I mean, there are people out there that don't go to a church, that don't do anything. So, I mean, are they religious or are they believer? I mean, they just believe in, and they're somebody who believe there's a God and there's a. But are you religious? What does religious mean? I think that's all. That's the conversation that needs to be had to first identify the conversation that we're gonna have. So when I look at what I wrote here on the book, and you look at that chapter that talks about that the religion and relationship part of it, it says the following. At first, in a quick glance, it seems that the definition of religion applies to what Christians have. When one studies the definition of the origin of the word religion, it says religion implies a link between man, God, or gods. But by studying the full definition, it refers to the creeds. Now, a creed is a statement of belief of a person, group, or culture. And dogmatic knowledge meaning the teachings and rules set by man. Every church should have a creed, and every church should have some kind of dogmatic knowledge or some kind of rules or whatever. However, when you look at the word religion and you study it, hold on, we got a comment. Hold I always thought religion was just going to church and listening to the word. A Christian who believe in God, but I have learned it so much more and still learning. Yeah, I think, and again, if you talk to somebody and they tell you that they believe that, are you religious? And they tell you, well, what do you mean by religious? And they tell you, well, you go to church and you listen to the word. Then you can say, okay, that's fine.
So by your definition, right.
But then I am a religious person. And then you got Christians who believe in God. I think that you can call anybody who believes anything, and the issue is that we tend to live 100% by definitions.
Right.
We love to define things. So whenever we touch the subject of religion and we touch the subject of Christian, I'm not religious, I'm Christian.
Right.
I'm not this, I'm that. So you start listening to it, and then you go, because I got Christians that I know people that hate the word religion because I'm a Christian, I'm not religious, I'm Christian. And then you go, okay, but they don't live a Christian life. Or they don't, or the way they live a very religious life. And then when you start going like, oh, but hold up, you don't like being called a religious person, it's kind of like a person that doesn't believe in God. They're an atheist. They don't believe in God, but say, "Oh my God."
Right.
I never understood that.
Well, because at that moment, that "Oh my God" is just a statement.
Oh, okay.
For them, "Oh my God" is for wow.
Right.
Oh my God. Oh, you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. So why did you say "Oh my God"? Oh, it's just a statement.
It's an exclamation.
It's just it's just a statement. And I think there's a lot of people in church who like to quickly go, I'm not religious. Oh, you're not? No. So explain to me what you believe. Well, I believe that, and then they go down the list of the things they believe and how they believe it.
Right.
Believing in God is not enough to be religious. Nor is it enough to be Christian. It just isn't enough. I mean, somebody who's Christian is somebody who behaves who follows the teaching and behaviors of Christ. That's where the word Christian comes from.
Right.
Christian has literally Christ within the word. So it's somebody who was preaching and teaching that Christ was the Savior.
Right.
So anybody at that time in the book of Acts, anybody who said Jesus Christ was Jesus was the Christ or the anointed one, they started calling them Christians because they followed Christ in his teachings. Now Christian is anybody who has some kind of belief in Christ. I mean, according to the definition out there, Christian comes to anybody who believes in Christ in some form or fashion. Catholics call themselves to be Christian.
Yep.
And the reason is because they believe that who forgives your sin is Christ. Catholics believe that you are forgiven by Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. So that's true. Jesus is the one who forgives my sin. But the reality is not that Jesus forgives my sin, is that Jesus was the one who died for my sins.
Right.
So then God can forgive my sins. You know what I'm saying? So in the way they teach it is you go to God through somebody else, being man or Virgin Mary or whatever. So I digress. The point is that now in the whole breaking down things into definitions and breaking down things into that, then what you have is a bunch of people that are not really believers, but they call themselves believers. So yeah.
So if I'm not sure if you finished reading the section about the.
I'm about to finish. So I was going to go into, because I finished that whole first paragraph when it talks about studying the full definition. It refers to the creed or statements, creed, and then in parentheses explaining what creeds are: statements or beliefs of a person, group of culture, and dogmatic knowledge. Then it goes into parentheses that explains that teaching and ruling set by man on a divine entity. And then it goes into the other one. That means that religion sets the way to approach God through knowledge of rules and teaching. So I ask, the relationship that you have with someone, that is your spouse, family, or friend, did it, and by it, I mean your relationship with them, begin through rules. So I understand that while relationships between two people is, while a relationship between people is growing, there are certain things that should be or should not be done to ensure a better relationship.
Mm-hmm.
However, these things that we do or don't do are for the sake of an already established relationship with that person. They are not rules, but actions that demonstrate the desire to maintain a good relationship. So the idea is that, and then I go into this. Imagine a gentleman passes by a lady and sees that she is good looking. And he says to himself, she's beautiful. I'd like to meet her. He approaches her and they strike up a conversation. During the first conversation, most people decide whether the person with whom he or she is talking to is a person who they would be interested in establishing some type of relationship with. Now, can you imagine if after the first conversation, the lady tells the gentleman, if you want to have a conversation with me again, or would like to have a relationship with me, I demand that the person who's with me is clean, is always on time, is willing to support me, because because I won't be working, but I will be I will be a housewife to look after my children. And since we're talking about children, I want 4 children.
Oh wow!
I want 2 boys and 2 girls.
After the first conversation.
This is wild. This is you having a conversation and you ask that person, I'd like to talk to you again. And before they go, sure, they go into, okay, hold up. If you want to talk to me again, you have to understand that this is what I expect. And I read it here. I think I'll leave the example right there because it might make you close the book and say this book is a horror story.
Right.
Because the lady is not seeking for a relationship, but a man who meets the requirements for this predetermined list. Don't misunderstand me. Anyone has the right to have certain expectations for their future, but many have lost his or hers partner because they are stuck to a list. Mm-hmm. If she will be looking for a relationship, she would realize that in order to have a happy relationship, the list might have to change or be adjusted. Mm-hmm. By the way, we have that problem right now within the church. So I don't think that the church should evolve. I don't think the church should change.
Okay.
But I do think the church needs to revisit itself. Because I think the church needs to revisit to find out if a lot of these requirements that we have set forth are even biblical. Mm-hmm. And is there a possibility that the church has done a disservice to the church, to the gospel? Notice the difference.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The church that have they done a disservice to the gospel by not willing to mature, not evolve. Mature. Evolve is changing into something else. Mm-hmm. Maturity is staying who I am. You know, I didn't evolve into a father.
Right.
You don't evolve into a father. You mature as you learn to be a father. So I leave young things behind, understanding that I've hit a new level in my life, and I have to be mature enough to handle this part of my life. I can't be a father and still do kid stuff.
Right.
So you start, and I think the church has sometimes failed to just take a look at the example that I make about the house. What's in addition to this house? What do we add to this house? And now it looks like a mansion, but half of it is not permitted. Mm-hmm. Half of it doesn't hold anything. Half of it doesn't do anything. As a matter of fact, it didn't add any value. It devalued the house because now whoever comes in, they can't even, you sell this house. You have a house that has all these rooms and you try to value it. at $200,000 because it has 4 or 5 bedrooms. But then they come in to do an inspection on it and realize that 2 of those rooms are not permitted. So now the house is no longer worth $200,000. Now it's worth $100,000. Why did it cut the value in half? Because whoever buys this house has to knock that place down.
Yeah.
And invest money into fixing all the stuff that you added to it. So I think that's where we at. So, and listen to what it says. If she would be looking for a relationship, she would realize that in order to have a relationship, the list might have to change or be adjusted. That even the gentleman that does not initially seem to have all the qualities of the list might be willing to change in order to maintain or improve his relationship with her. He changes not to get her, but changes to please her.
Mm-hmm.
But only after he gets to know her.
Right.
At times, it's while she gets to know him that she might realize that the list is not what she wanted, but what she thought she needed. So the idea is this. So the idea is, I want a man, for me to be happy, I want a man that makes at least 6 digits. That's in the 100,000, for example, because I want a house, I want this. So so in my list, you have a man that has to make that, and that's fine. If you have certain expectations of your life, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's your list. And in the first conversations, you'll be like, so how you doing? What kind of job do you have? Oh, I'm this. Oh, okay. And then you go home and Google that job to see that job makes, in the 6 figure. And then all of a sudden you start realizing, oh no, I don't want this man. Was he a good he was funny. He had good conversation. He was that. But girl, he makes about 40 or 50,000. I'm looking for somebody that makes at least 80 to 90. I want 100,000 just so I know just so I know that I got a good life and I got this, I got that. Or maybe 100,000 is crazy list. Maybe put 50,000, 60,000. That's not hard to make out there.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden you meet this man that makes you happy, that makes you smile,
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel great as a woman, but only makes 30,000. And then all of a sudden you realize this requirement in my list, I don't need it to be happy. I never thought a man that made $30,000 was able to make me happy. I never thought that a man that was not going to be able to put myself in a Mercedes would make me happy. This man made me understand that I didn't need money to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So now this lady found a relationship because she adjusted the list. However, she hasn't found that person because she hasn't adjusted the list. Because the list is what determines whether we even talk again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Not whether we had fun, not whether we did this. The list is what determines whether we talk again. So check this out. Here's the problem of religion. Religion sets requirements to achieve salvation. That means that religious people, this is why I say that I'm not religious. This was why. Because religious people focus. They focus on doing. Because if they stop doing, they're no longer saved.
Mm.
And if they continue doing, they will find salvation. If that's the case, then our salvation is completely tied with our works. And I write in here, we are in trouble then. There is nothing we can do to gain salvation. If salvation has to do with being faithful to traditions and rules of a religious system, sooner or later, the day will come when we will fall short. And if that is the day of our death or the rapture, what now?
Mm.
So, going back to the original definition at the beginning of the paragraph, in which it's saying a religion is creed and dogmatic knowledge. would you say that the failure that we make is focusing on the creed and on that dogmatic, like in the example that you said, sticking to that list? Would you say that that's the failure, but we could still use that as a foundation before we take it to a personal level, or because it attaches salvation to works, it's better just to completely leave off?
Anything that I don't, you have to have a creed. I mean, a creed is a statement of what you believe in. So, for example, statements of belief of a person, group, or culture. So, in my church, in our teachings, our creed is that Jesus died for us, and He justified us, and He did all these things. So the creed is that thing that you believe in. If you believe for nothing, you'll fall for anything. Right. So yeah, you need a belief system. You need something to believe in. The problem is that it goes past belief, and then you go into the teachings, and the teachings that we go into to try to help the people that are within the church. Those teachings, they seem to focus a lot on you have to do this. You have to do this. And we come to the conclusion, and it's not just that you have to do this, it's the fact that if you don't do it, you might lose your salvation.
Right.
Right. And then you go, wait a minute. Like, wait a minute. Like just put it in a relationship. Like, if you put it in a relationship, I don't mind. And again, let me break this down to the easiest way to understand. You find a girl, and she likes you. You talk and this and that, and in the process of it, she comes clean and lets you know she don't like mustache, and you wear a mustache or have a mustache. If you're wearing a mustache, then it's fake. You have a mustache, and in the process of it, she be like, "Yo, I don't like the mustache," and you go, "I don't like the way my face looks like without one, because my lip looks like, like there's 3 inches in between the lip and my nose." There's people that got big upper lip. So I don't like the way that I look without a mustache. Yeah, but I don't like mustache. So you didn't have that struggle. You didn't have that thing. And then eventually you decide as a man to, all right, let's go on that. Let's leave it there. And now this point of a mustache is about to break this relationship.
Okay.
Because she is like, this is a deal breaker for me. Like, it's a deal breaker. If you keep the mustache, I can't be with you. And he is like, if I have to get rid of the mustache, I don't want to be with you. Think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. So let's just say that all of a sudden, the guy, because, he's in the beginning of the relationship and, he's trying to just please her, shows up one day, no mustache. And she goes like, "Oh my God, thank you so much," and this and that, and all this, and I love it. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden they get married, and after they get married, homie says, "Time to grow that mustache back." And now she's like, "Yo, you grow that mustache back again, and our relationship is over."
Wow.
This relationship is over because of a mustache. That is what I believe religion is. I believe religion is the idea that a mustache is going to break this relationship up. So in other words, if I don't pray as long as you say I gotta pray, I'm going to hell. Not because I sin, but because I didn't come to church. Or not because, so if I don't do this, I'm going to hell. If I do this, notice that the wife didn't say, "You're growing your mustache back up again?" "Yeah, I'm growing my mustache." "But I don't like it." Notice the point is, but I don't like it. It wasn't into that. You grow it, we're done. Our relationship is over if you grow it. It was never about how I feel or how you feel.
It was just the point.
It never. But why are you growing? You know how it makes me
Right.
feel. So religion has no. Sometimes the things that we talk about, what keeps you from having a good relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
is stuff that you really go, huh?
Yeah.
Now, when I say things, liberal people or people that love to flex the idea of relationship with God, with He loves me no matter what, and they use this and they go, exactly. So why do we have so many expectations and requirements in the church? And I would say to that person, for the same reason, I'm gonna lose the laptop.
And we got the charger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. We are so unprepared today. Today was a crazy day. We literally showed up here, late. We had some issues and we showed up late. And usually we have everything kind of set up. So today we're behind the 8 ball. So I think what I'm. So we have the people that say, okay, so we're talking about things that don't make a big deal. Yeah, you're right. But it's interesting enough that the same people that are trying to say, well, then a lot of churches have things in place that are really not a big deal. And I agree with them. Yeah, I agree. A lot of churches have things that are no big deal. And if a pastor or a church ties salvation to that stuff, that church is wrong. Because you can't tie salvation to a lot of these things that have nothing to do with salvation. But for me, you see a lot of people that then say, so I don't need to adjust to nothing to have a relationship. Like, I want a relationship with God, but I don't have to adjust anything. For me, that's the equivalent of a person literally just telling you, so I can see other people. I want an open relationship.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you got to kick rocks.
So we went from
Man.
a mustache that is just something in my face to
An open relationship.
just an open relationship, because the idea that there is no kind of expectations from God is the idea that so you don't have any expectations for your loved one, for your spouse, or for whatever. So I think that's the issue. I think the issue is that religion puts a lot of things into it. So there's nothing we can do. Sooner or later, the day will come where we will fall short. Now, check this out. I found the following statement while I was studying about religion. This is the problem with religion also.
Okay.
Depending on the understanding and accepting of the divinity, there are different types of religions for you. Here's my problem with religion. My problem with religion is that if I accept that we are in a religious system, that means that your system might be different than my system, but they all get us to the same place. Listen to what it says. Depending on your understanding and accepting
Right.
of the divinity, there are different types of religion for you. And then I go, is this not a dangerous phrase?
Man.
This is the reason that people, like the person that I referenced early in the book, that can say Pentecostal system failed them. Many seek different ways of how to understand and accept God. So they seek another religion when one has failed. If this is so, then we have believers within the church that came because they were preached about a living God, and when the relationship with God died, they were left with the religious system in a church. The issue is that they no longer focus on the relationship with God because they think they can get their salvation if they just stick around. These are the Christians that only see positions, holy or less holy people, control, jealousy, and arguments in the church. Because every religious system ends up putting the focus on man, tradition, and practices within the system, and diverting attention away from a relationship with God. So, When the relationship with God dies, the only thing that remains is the awareness of punishment.
Wow.
Let me explain what I mean. When a person has a relationship with God, everything has to do with pleasing God.
Mm-hmm.
How to get to know God better. But when a person loses its relationship with God, they begin to be aware of their faults and start to think, if I don't do something, I'll lose my salvation. Notice what I'm saying. What I'm saying is relationship puts the focus on me and my religion puts the focus on me and my faults.
Right.
When you're in a relationship with God, it's all about pleasing God. When you're in religion, you're always checking you. You're always checking you because and your faults and how short you're gonna be. So the person finds himself lacking and doesn't think to approach God, but now finds himself looking to silence his self-awareness and finds a way to a list of expectations. So they say to themselves, I go to worship, I dress holy, I don't lie, I give tithes, my offering is never missing. When I see something out of place, as the Bible says, I point it out. My skirt is longer than the sisters of the church. I don't practice this pagan festivals. After going through the whole list, you know what they say? I'm good.
I'm good. Oh.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Notice it had nothing to do with the relationship with God. They went down a checklist.
Yeah.
Am I a good Christian? Well, I go to church. Check. I dress holy. Check. I give offerings and that. Check. I check. Yeah. Never thought, I wonder how I'm doing in my relationship with God. They never checked. So they go down the list and they go, I'm fine. So everything was focused on me, on my, and I. Everything was my offering. I give tithes. I dress holy. I go to worship.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was focused on me, my, and I. Guess what? This is the oldest tactic of the devil.
Yep.
Genesis 3:4-5. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall not die. God knows the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The mystery of the religious system is that it begins teaching a way towards God. Check this out. Stop. Check this out. Listen to this. I think this is important. Check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Every religious system brings you in by teaching you a way towards God, but then pulls a full responsibility on the man, and thus makes the man feel able to do it without God's help. So you want to seek God? Come. We got to wait for your salvation. We got to wait for you to accept God. We got to wait for you to do that. And then in the teachings of that is you must do this. You must do this. You should do this. You shouldn't do this. You do this. You do this. You do this. You do this. And they taught me how to get to God, and they only told me what I need to do. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden it's like getting to know God has nothing to do with God. It's all about me. It's all about what I do, what I don't do, what I say, what I don't say.
Yep.
So this whole thing with God is all about me going over there. So in fact, the issue that many have with God is that they don't understand how is it possible that they have been so faithful to the religious system and God does not help. They talk, God has not helped, God has not talked or even answered their requests. Is it possible to be part of a religious system, preach about God, live by the rules that God himself established, and not be heard or recognized by God? So that becomes the issue in the church. I've done everything that the church did, and and the church told me to do, and I don't feel any better. And that's when the church stops working for me, because I've done everything that the church told me to do, and it hasn't gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone to the church many times. The church gone to, and I went home still feeling like doing the same thing as always. Look, man, I tried your system. It don't work for me. It has never done anything for me. And that's the problem with religion. So, Matthew 7:22-24. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name cast out demons? And in your name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you evildoers. I think this would be the greatest horror
Absolutely.
in the day in the encounter with God.
Absolutely.
I never knew you. That's crazy.
And it's so dangerous too because like you said, this person keeps saying I'm all right because I have my list, and like you said, that I don't think there's anything I'm more afraid of than that, to have held myself to a list so strictly and then Jesus to say, yeah, I don't know who you are. I mean, we have that, and the person's gonna keep on going and thinking, and like you said, in that faithful day, we're gonna just be stuck here. And even if you don't hold yourself to that list. We have the two extremes. We have the person that's the ultra holy person that sticks to the list and God never hears him whatsoever. And then we have the other person that, he fails in one of his check marks, and that stops him from praying, that stops him from whatever. That same list that sometimes makes him feel like the holiest of all holies is the same list that prevents him from seeking out any help. Because that's the whole point.
The same list that makes you feel the holiest of all holiers makes you feel the crappiest of all crappiest.
Absolutely.
And you know what's crazy about that part? For me, it wasn't it was the fact that he said wasn't in your names that we cast out demons. So not only does he go by the list, but he goes by the things that he's done in Jesus' name that has happened. So for him, he must have been like, okay, so if these things are happening, he must be with me. And then now he got the list. He has the works, and then he goes up to heaven, and Jesus said, I don't know you. That was for me was the craziest part of that verse.
Okay, so all right, so you wake up one day, and your wife looks shady. She quiet.
Okay.
Mike's ready. Okay.
She ain't saying nothing. She was kind of cold. And you be like, oh, what? But you go to work. You come back, and your wife is still kind of. Well, she might be having a bad day. Maybe one of them women's tough. She feeling whatever we we man tend to tell ourselves to take the blame off of us. Maybe this, maybe that, and then the next day. And now it's been 2 or 3 days, and she just kind of
giving the cold shoulder.
So then you start going, well, I give her a kiss. Good morning every day. I went to work. I came home straight from work. This time I wasn't late. She usually fights when I'm late from work. I wasn't late. I haven't been watching too much TV. Like sometimes I go home and I'm watching TV and she don't like it, so I didn't watch TV. I came home on time. I missed no work. I haven't done any fighting. I haven't done anything. Yeah, I'm good. Whatever she's going through is herself.
Nice.
Whatever she's going through, it's got to be something that she's done. Because when I go down to what I think a husband should do, I'm good. I'm good. And marriages have broken up because a husband just continued to go, well, I'm there. If she needs something, I'm there. If she does that, and then a marriage breaks up, and then people be like, I didn't see it happen. I know she was acting kind of weird, but I was doing what I was supposed to. I wasn't fighting. I wasn't giving her grief. I was doing this. I was doing that. Wow. Your wife, there's something wrong with your wife, and you have all you said is, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do that. You never went to ask her why she was feeling like that. You never went to ask her what you were doing or what could be this or what could be that. So you never checked the relationship. You only checked your responsibilities.
Okay.
So you never check the relationship. You always.
Yeah.
And then that woman later goes on, files divorce or does whatever, and then tells you never policed me as a woman, because there was no intimacy in as far as conversations. Our conversations was always, yeah, you did good at work. Look at this thing I bought. What about this? There was never an actual conversation. There was never an understanding of what I feel. There was never an understanding of what I need. There was never any understanding. So you just
And that man will walk out of the divorce saying, I didn't do nothing wrong.
You met every opportunity, you met every requirement to be a husband, and you failed at every chance to be a partner.
Wow.
What do we say we're gonna call those? We're gonna call those quotes. What are we gonna say we're gonna call those? Because that's one of them.
Yeah, we gotta write that down.
You met every
Wow.
requirement as a husband, and you fell short in every requirement as a life partner.
Wow.
You knew how
Mind blown.
you knew how to be a husband based on what your daddy told you, your brother told you,
Mhm.
whatever he told you, but you always failed to be my man. So you were never able to deal with me, because the only thing that you valued in this marriage was that you did what was your part and I did what was my part, and we never understood what made us. That's religion.
Mm.
Religion is that. Religion is where I always check on the temperature of what I do and nothing else. So I think that when God comes, we're going to have religious people that followed every checklist in the church, requirements that will be staying behind. And there are people who are flawed that are going to heaven. Because I believe there are people who are perfect in the religion's expectations and are flawed in the relationship.
Mm.
So what would be the inverse of that then? What do you mean by a flawed person?
Okay, I was late, and she hates it when I'm late. So when I go down the list of my husband's checklist, I failed. I'm a flawed husband, but I always cared how she felt. So I failed in the requirements of a husband, but I always made her feel like I was her life partner. So, she will say,
Bong.
she will say one day, this dude never picked up his shoes. Never picked up his shoes. I have been married with him for 20 years, and I fight about the godforsaken shoes in the living room for 20 years. And no matter what I did, he never got it. Then why you stick around? He never made me feel like less than a queen.
Yeah.
So what's the invert of that? The invert is there are people who are perfect in the expectations. They have never worn a skirt higher than this. They have never missed a service. They give this, they give that. They go down the list, but they have no relationship with God. They have absolutely no relationship with God. There is no the prayer that they have, it's only going down a list. They don't pray, they repeat the same thing all the time. They go this, they go that. They don't have a relationship with God. They don't have the things that you do to have a better relationship with God. So all of a sudden, you got this person. I didn't say sin. I said flawed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
David and Saul.
Go ahead and preach now.
Drama, no drama.
Go ahead and preach now.
The difference between them, and yet God was like, yeah, I like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's full of drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he my drama.
Right.
Saul had no drama, but he was never mine. He was always the people's.
Yeah. It's an amazing point.
Always the people's.
You got a preacher. You got a preacher who's flawed.
Mm-hmm.
who hasn't been perfect, but he cares about the word. He cares about, and when he teaches us the word of God. And then you have this preacher that is perfect in every expectations of what a preacher should be, about this, about that. And then when God comes one day, he looks at this preacher and goes, this guy wasn't perfect, but he was my preacher. You were perfect, but you were the people's preacher. You preach for the people. He preached for me.
So do you ever think there was a time in which
1964.
Okay. Do you ever think that there was a time in which, even though Saul wasn't the one that God chose or the one that was according to God's image, do you think there was a time where God was with Saul even though he wasn't?
I think we forget how Saul began. I think at the end of the day, Saul was chosen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Saul was chosen by God. I don't think we always talk about Saul like he's the biggest problem. He was an answer to a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
These people requested a king, and God gave him a king, and He gave him a king exactly like they wanted.
Like the other nations.
And the way that Saul became a king was to actually protecting his people,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't want to be a king, but in the process of it, he stood up against the enemy of Israel to save them. And so he had the same. Go look at David's life and Saul's life, and you will notice the similarities are uncanny.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Different character, same plot.
Bro, the same
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Like they started like being kings around the same age. They ruled for almost the same amount of years.
Yeah.
I mean, the qualities in their life, Saul was from the smallest
Family, the smallest
family,
tribe.
and this and that, and although he was taller, he was still less than everybody else. And then you got David. Saul was just his choices.
Mm-hmm.
David didn't care to tell people I screwed up. Saul was like, this is just like.
Keep it on the down low.
Like,
Yeah.
whatever, just make me look good here in the moment, because
Walk with me.
I'm the people's.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the people's champ. So you're not gonna do this to me. I'm the people's champ. So you don't. This is I did this not because of what. Let me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you kill everything? Nah. Well, the people
Right.
chose this. David, people dying. It's not the people's fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the king. So, at the end of the day, although both were anointed, one decided to be God's king, and one decided to be the people's champ.
Mm.
So, you can be the people's champ, or you can be God's champ.
Yeah.
God's champ is sometimes flawed, makes mistakes, but knows how to get back up.
Right.
Got kids after his throne.
Yeah.
Got baby mama issues.
Yeah.
Got a hand that's full of blood because he killed even innocent people.
Yeah.
He set one of his hitmen to kill another person, no matter where. He killed them
On the altar.
of mercy by David's order.
Yeah.
This dude,
David was on no games.
David had issues,
Yeah.
but cared so much about the relationship between him and God that he just worked on it.
Yeah.
All that, and the Bible still says he was according to God's heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tabernacle he wants to be built. Because I stumbled as I wanted to please you.
Mm-hmm.
But Saul stumbled because he wanted to please the people. So they both stumbled, but one stumbled wanted to please you, and the other stumbled trying to please the other.
Mm.
So I do believe heavens is going to have a surprise.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be full of surprises.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to be full of surprises. We're going to see churches in heaven. You'll be like, say what?
They went to heaven.
Like this,
Yeah.
what this church did that. And the Lord be like, it was never a big deal. Y'all
Could you
made,
imagine?
y'all made it a big deal.
Right.
Meanwhile, they worked on everything else in their life to get here. And you going to have holies of holies in hell.
Good Lord.
But we will determine ourselves where they spend the rest of their life, depending on what they were wearing when they died. So
Isn't that something?
the priest is going to heaven because he had the priest garment. Lazarus won't go to heaven because he's a beggar. There's two Lazarus in the Bible. One of them is a beggar. Mind blown.
Yeah. I'm not gonna act like I knew that. Mind blown.
El Rico y Lázaro.
I always thought that was the same dude. I was like, oh, okay, he's in two
man.
different stories. All right.
No,
You got
bro.
2 chapters. All right, my
He's a
man.
go-getter. All
Man,
right.
yeah.
He's a go-getter. Man.
No.
Right out the tumba and he's ready. What's
No.
up?
No. Two
Second time
different.
he went into the ground, he still made an impact.
Two,
Good for him.
yeah. He's a revolutionizer. No, that was two different men. But what
Wow.
I'm saying is, everybody looked at Lazarus on the street and a bum died. So
Yeah.
he probably didn't make it. Look at him. The priest died with all his priest garments on, so he must be holy of holy.
Meanwhile,
But when a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. How does a holy man die with his holy garments on? What was he doing? What was he doing that God allowed him to die with his holy garments? He had the garments, but he disrespected the holiness.
the holy place. Yeah. Psh. Mind blown again.
Saul had the throne. David had the crown.
Oh, bro. Yeah, that was good. That was fire. That was fire. Oh,
I'll give you that one.
fire. Hey.
You got the throne. I got the crown.
I'll give you that one.
Yeah. That was fire.
Yeah, bruh. Don't sleep on the old
Yeah,
man.
all right. You still got a little something.
So let me see. Where am I at? I'm ready to throw these things against the ground.
Yeah, I know.
People have got to think I'm like the most serious guy ever because you guys are just laughing out loud. I'm laughing. You guys just can't hear me.
Well, you guess because you roll away. My chair don't have rollies.
You just,
Yeah. I'll be like, wow.
I'm back.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, I left it over here. Okay, let's see. This is what we were talking about, right? I think this will be the greatest horror on the day we encounter God.
Right.
So as a man of God, it will be my nightmare to do so much in one day here that he never knew me. Never knew me. Never knew me. You don't know how that feels? I asked Jordan if he knows you. But you wear his kicks. You have his logo on your cell phone. You represent the brand, but the brand don't know you.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's, yeah, you represented me, but you never had a relationship with me. So, all right. So, Paul was worried about this himself and said in his first letter to the Corinthians in chapter 9, verse 27, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Paul made a decision to ensure the order was correct and that it had nothing to do with works, but through a relationship. He writes to the Philippians in chapter 3, verse 7 to 14. But whatever were gains to me, now I consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For those for whose sake I have lost all things and consider them garbage. By the way, this is a clean version because the actual version doesn't say garbage. It says, manure.
Okay.
That I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith. So I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection and the participation in his suffering, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Not that I have already obtained all this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken a hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining forward what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Now, notice that Paul is not talking about a system that does not fail, nor is speaking of laws or rules. Yes, he mentions of things lost and things he is doing. Everything is to know Christ, to have the relationship with him. So now, what does the dictionary say about the word relationship? Although there are different ways you can apply the word relationship, the one that best applies to the context of what we are describing is defined as follows: connection between something or someone with something else or someone else. The study of this word emphasizes the idea of relationship, refers to influential friends or acquaintances. This refers to when someone says he got that position because of the relationships he had. When I worked in management, there was a phrase that was widely used. It's not what you know, but who you know that matters. You know something? This phrase is more real in the spiritual realm than in the secular. Don't you think? Now, read what the prophet says. Isaiah 35:8. And it shall be there in a way, and it will be called the way of holiness. Unclean shall not pass him, but he himself will be with them. Which wayfaring man, though fools, shall not err therein. It has nothing to do with knowledge or ability, although a fool. It says, although a fool, it should not stray. So it's got nothing to do with what you know, because even a fool can work it, can walk it. It's about who you know, because he says, I myself will be with them. A separation and divorce of our relationship with God is what has brought a boom of religious people still calling themselves Christians. The separation and divorce of our relationship with God. As the church has become more and more separated from God, we have more Christians. Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that something?
Wow.
We have less connection with God and more Christians.
Wow.
Why do you think that is? If religion is
Because
nothing
we
but a
have less
checklist?
because we have less marriages and more babies.
Wow.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Man. That's a good example.
I preach in this church and teach a holiness that has nothing to do with checklists and has put it on your own, and we have less people that want that holiness than one that's a checklist.
Wow. People don't want that.
Oh, but don't tell me to think. Tell me what to wear.
Exactly. Exactly. Just tell me.
It's
Yeah,
easier
just
to fill out
yeah.
a checklist.
Yeah, you can have a church full of people that dress this way because if they don't, they're chastised by it. Then a church that you go just whatever the Spirit tells you and have a personal holiness with God. And believe it or not, more churches go to the other one than this one sometimes because I just want you to tell me what I need to do. Not only that, that other church is full of people who feel better than me because they dress better. Because they know they have the checklist. Pastor told me skirt is 2 inches under the knee. You work on your prayer. I work on my ruler work.
Wow.
You figure out your relationship with God. I already know how many fingers is 2 inches.
I can eyeball it already.
So, I already know. I've tried it. This 2 fingers and a little bit more, it's 2 inches. So I'm good. So you need to figure out your relationship with God. I just need to figure out that every skirt is 2 inches. That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy.
Wow.
Takes little work on your end.
Exactly. Relationship takes little work. It sounds like hard work, but it's not. It's just don't do this and do this.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow.
That really is a sad truth. I mean, there's so many things that, even though it seems like it's less just because you have a checklist to fill out, there is so much more burden. Like we said earlier, it puts the whole weight of your salvation on you solely on what you do. And yet just because I can go by a checklist, 5 steps, I'm all good. People would rather do that than, put in a little bit more effort into a relationship and then realize it is just so much more liberating to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
It really is a sad thing. And like we've discussed before, I remember so many times that you've said it in the church and stuff like that. Religion is one of the hardest things to break in someone's mind.
It's worse than I don't remember if it was in this book or the other one where you have a better chance of saving someone if they're caught up in drugs than in religion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're in drugs or whatever, you understand that you need help.
Right.
So it's better to fix an argument between a husband and wife if there's a possibility I'm wrong. If I don't think I'm wrong,
there's no fixing it.
It's just about you recognizing that I'm right.
Yeah. We can cut
It's
this.
about winning.
We can cut this to the chase, and you realize that I'm never wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we can cut to the chase and realize that you're never wrong, but you always hurt. So we can make this short. You're right, as long as you admit you're hurtful.
And very few people will admit to that.
Yeah.
So how
Because in the argument, one of them is trying to tell you hurt, and the other one's trying to tell you I'm right.
Yeah.
We ain't even in the same ballpark, my G.
Yeah, we're not talking the same.
We're not talking
conversation.
we're not talking the same. We ain't even. We're not in the same page. We ain't in the same book, my G. Like you talking who's right. I'm telling you how I feel.
Right. You gonna tell me I'm wrong by the way I feel? Come on now.
What were you gonna say, Mike?
So how do you is the only way to break a mindset like that just exactly that, kind of just like face planting, hitting? Like, how would you go about helping someone break a religious mindset?
When they realize it doesn't work.
So out of frustration, that's what has to shake someone out.
Not frustration. Hopefully, it's not frustration. Frustration. Hopefully, is acknowledgement.
Realization.
And when you realize the church hasn't worked for me.
Yeah.
When you realize that you can put a skirt on a prostitute and she still feels like selling her body.
Hey now.
When you realize you can put a tie on a drunk and he still wants to drink.
Yeah.
Hey now.
When you realize that there are people that come to the church and sit for 2 hours, and while I'm preaching, they're craving their cigarette. But they don't miss a service. They give their money. But whatever I have hasn't changed in them. So eventually, that person will do two things. The church don't work for me, or tell me eventually, why is it that I come to church every day? Why is it that I do all this and I still can't break this habit? Oh.
Now we can have this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't even. Yeah.
I've been unfaithful to every woman because there's always someone prettier. And then you get the most beautiful one. You take it home. You wife her. And you still look to the side. And you realize that ain't got nothing to do with the person next to you. It has to do with you. So I got things that I need to change. Michael, you got mail?
Something like that.
Did you say something? Were you gonna say something, Mikey?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always that joke about admitting is the first step when, dealing with all this type of stuff. But it's the same thing with this religion. Like you said, it's acknowledgement, knowing that I am the problem and finding a way to find a solution for it.
It's when I talk about things in the church, that, and I tell them that this isn't in the Bible and this and this and that.
Yep.
And people look at me all taboo, like, why are you bringing that up?
Right.
And then I look at them and go, why are you thinking about it and never asked? Like, you're going to sit here right now and tell me that everything I'm saying you ain't thought about and questioned, but you've accepted this whole time?
They've been complacent.
And now I tell you, and now the only...
Yeah.
So that's when it gets interesting. Now, check this out. When the relationship is personal with God, all other benefits from that relationship. When the relationship of the parents is good, the children benefit. When the relationship of the parents is deteriorating and destroyed, it is the children who suffer damaging effects. Even if the parents try to impose a system of rules or visits or a set of routines to fill the void that comes when mommy and daddy are no longer together, even if they're on the same roof. Children continue to suffer the ravages of the rotten relationship between their parents. This nation is suffering the ravages of separation between state and God. Now, notice what I said, state and God. I'm not talking about the connection between state and religion. I'm talking about the state and God.
Yeah.
As there's no desire to improve the relationship between this nation and God, the approach is to do what keeps the people happy. You know what I'm saying? You got a president that can end his speech saying, God bless America. And it sounds great. And then that same president stands in front of a church and you realize he don't even know how to hold a Bible.
Yo, that was crazy. That was crazy. Homie was holding it like this.
It's like when you ask the president, for example, when he was running, what are your favorite books? Well, I have two. Number one, the Bible, and The Art of the Deal, which is a book he wrote. And then the reporter was like, what's your favorite book in the Bible? 2 Corinthians. Did you just say 2 Corinthians? There isn't a Bible reader that has ever called it 2 Corinthians. It's 2 Corinthians. When you're just like, when you're holding the Bible and you're like, at one time he was holding it sideways because the whole thing he wants you to know is it's a Bible. And he realized it doesn't say Holy Bible here, so he's holding it. But it's the same person that says God bless America. Because there is no relationship between God and state. It's just words.
Right.
Just words.
Wow.
Just words.
Just words.
He picked a church that was down the street from the White House. Can we ask the man how many times he's gone inside?
Not once.
You went there when it was boarded up?
Amazing.
Okay. As there is no desire to improve the relationship between this nation and God, the approach is to do what keeps the people happy. The Bible shows us the people of a nation tend to always deviate from God, and that men and women in leadership positions needed to return the people of hearts to God. So what has happened? They have taken God out and let religion in. by introducing religion, then you have to give equality to other religions.
Right.
And as this has proven impossible, and thus impossible to bring peace. Since it's impossible to make all religions happy, God was removed. Once again, the lack of relationship with God resulted in chaos. When pastors and ministry leaders lose their relationship with God, the church is left to suffer the ravages. As each leader defends the church, its teaching, its regulations, and other systems, no one benefits. On the contrary, it brings confusion. Leaders without a relationship with God cannot find what God wants to say to his disciples. In the Bible, in our history, the laws, messages, and warnings coming from men of God did not come because they looked for them. These laws, messages, and warning came because God is doing something. He seeks someone with whom he has a relationship with to tell. So what I'm saying right here is the reason why God doesn't speak and give warnings as he used to before is because God doesn't warn people. They just look for a message. So you got preachers that are just looking for a message. They're looking for what they're going to preach about, what they're going to talk about. And it sounds like they're having a relationship. You don't have a relationship. You're looking for what to talk about.
Right.
But God never said, I will speak to those who are looking for a message. This is what he says. Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plans to his servants, the prophets. The relationship with Abraham had reached such a level of intimacy that when the time came to bring judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah, God said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Think about that. This is my friend. Should I hide it from him?
An all-powerful God worrying about whether he should hide something just from a man.
But it wasn't about a man. It was his friend.
His friend. Abraham was his friend, bro.
This is the reason why the gospel lacks credibility. And it's because it lacks men and women with intimate relationship with God. If we want a gospel with direction, a gospel with credibility, backed by miracles and signs of God, let's get back to our relationship with God. That's that chapter. And then it goes into the deadly virus of religion. Why religion is so deadly to people. So the whole book is like that. We can continue reading all this about that. But
next Monday.
But the idea is that we have to understand that what does it mean I'm not religious? It means that I don't believe nothing I can do is going to save me. Now, does that mean we don't follow rules in religion? No, that's not what it means. Like many people, well, if you're not religious, how come you follow the religious rules? You call them religious rules.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's like a husband saying, I can't do this because marriage laws tells me I can't do that. You can't do what? I can't be unfaithful to my wife because, husbands don't do that. No. It's got nothing to do with husbands. Husbands don't do that. This is the fact that you shouldn't do that to one you love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason you haven't cheated on your wife? Because that's not what a husband does? Why don't you cheat on your woman? I gave her my word that I was going to be faithful. This is all about you, ain't it?
Wow.
Good luck, buddy.
This is all about you. This dude right here. This dude was like, because I gave my word. So it got nothing to do with you love her. It's got nothing to do with you wouldn't do that to her. I did. I gave you my word as a man. Do you love me? I'm still here, ain't I? How was that the answer to my question?
That's crazy, bro. I'm still here. Wow. Wow.
So that's the issue with religion. And that's when I said I'm not religious, is because I don't accept the idea that I follow rules and that I follow ideas. Does the church have requirements? Our church has requirements. That's a church. You want to be a member to the church. Here are the rules of the church. And I'm not telling you that rules of the church means that you're going to heaven. You know what I'm saying? I'm not telling you this church might have a rule that says that people in our church don't wear this. And then you'll be like, well, I don't agree with that. Okay, then you don't have to be a member of the church. But what does that have to do with my salvation? Whoa. When did I say it had to do anything with your salvation?
Right.
We have figured, we think that for these reasons that you shouldn't go, that you shouldn't have that. That's it. That's it. So you're telling me that if I wear this, I'm going to hell? No, I just said if you wear this, you can't be a member of this church.
Right.
But I like this church. Well, you will shave your mustache. Not literally. It's back to the references. Yeah. You know, this is not a deal breaker, but if you really, really want to please me, then shave your mustache. Mm-hmm. And then you might go, well, if you really, really love me, let me have it. Oh, we can sit down and discuss this further. No problem. But nobody's mentioned salvation here.
Right.
So I believe that churches have rules and churches have this and have that. The church don't do that. But to say Christians don't practice that's not what we're supposed to.
Right.
So, you know, the conversation then deviates from the dogmas, and the dogma means a man's teaching and requirements, the teachings of the Word of God being a doctrine, and what is the difference between them. One is a requirement of God shown to us by the Bible, and then the other one is, you know, a requirement of man, sometimes based off of a Bible and sometimes based off of whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, you know, some churches start the service at 7:30. Some churches start the churches at 7. If you want to be a member of this church, our service starts at 7. And if you continue coming at 7:30, then all of a sudden you're not responsible to your things. Things happen. I'm using nobody's ever lost a membership for being late for church. But what I'm saying is, okay, let's not make it church. Let's make it a job.
Mm-hmm. Right.
First shift. That's right. What shift you work? First shift. What shift you work? First shift. What shift you work? First shift. Oh, for real? Cool. Yo, can I give you a ride to work? Yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll pick you up at 5. Why? Because I'm going to take you to work. You work first shift, don't you? Mm-hmm, I work first shift. My first shift starts at 7. Oh, man, mine starts at 6. Well, then you don't work first shift. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do. I work first shift. It's just my job works 6 to 2. Your job's 7 to 3. And this person has a 9 to 5.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all considered the first shift. Who's wrong? Why?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Why? That should be that should be the questions that you ask many churches. That other church does this. Who's right or who's wrong? Why? Why is that the question?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Why?
I, as a pastor, give people. I don't have services on Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't particularly have never or don't ever practice or celebrate Christmas. However, I do know that some family members get together on that date. So let's just say that 10 family members came all the way from Buffalo to visit the family here, and they got a dinner get together because that's the day they get together. So all of a sudden they are getting together on that day. So historically, what I have done is I tend to give time off. Yeah, okay. July 4th. Mm-hmm. I'm not crazy about, Independence Day. Ooh, fireworks. Bro, fireworks. You've seen them twice. You've seen them all.
Yeah.
Unless you go to the one in Disney World, that's another level.
Oh my goodness.
But you've seen them all. Blah blah blah. Okay, let's go. Now we got a gang of people that we got to go. Right. Okay. July 4th, COVID-19. Interesting.
Canceled.
Nah, bro. Look at outside. People don't care.
That's
they
crazy.
will. They will give each other COVID-19 for a firework. So, anyways, I don't celebrate. I don't celebrate July 4th. Not because of religion or nothing like that. It has nothing to do with religion. It's Independence Day. How can that be against the religion? It's got nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. I don't. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do that. So guess what? But I also at July 4th, I don't give a service, even if it falls on a church day. Everybody, take your day.
Mhm.
Be safe. Be this. Be that. Okay. Thanksgiving Day. I don't do nothing. One time we did something together as a church.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not gonna do every year Thanksgiving of a dinner with the church because now your family never gets to see you because
Right.
you're in a church.
'Cause you're-
So although
Mhm.
I don't celebrate a lot of these things, although Thanksgiving is something that we don't, what I'm saying is I will give off from the church for a lot of these days because not everybody believes that. Some churches don't care. New Year's Eve service.
Mm-hmm.
July 4th, we're going to preach Independence Day.
Alrighty.
Thanksgiving, come to our church and we have Thanksgiving. So some churches believe that because they're a family, they're going to do all that together. I don't. So then I had a lady that came to me one time and said, do you give services on Christmas? And I was like, no. Well, do you know my mom goes to a church and they give services on Christmas? Oh. What do you think about that? I don't think about it.
Can I please get the change so I can go?
I don't think about it. But don't you think? Why don't you give churches? Why don't you give services? Because I think sometimes you should spend time with the family. Don't you think the other pastor should think like that? I don't think that he should think like that. That's how I think. Can you give me a biblical verse that will back that up so I can show my mom?
Why is she fishing?
And I'm going, it's just not happening. So who's right?
Give me my receipt.
Who's right? The pastor who's gives services all these times, and who's wrong? And then the question is, why? Why?
Yeah.
It's all first shift. Yours is at 6, mine's at 7, his is at 9.
Mm-hmm.
How about we find a time that we can get together afterwards?
Yeah.
Because it ain't gonna work.
Mm.
Cintas had drivers that were not allowed to drive with the door open. UPS drivers drive around with the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
Cintas don't allow their service managers to wear shorts. Part of the uniform in the UPS, especially in summer, is to wear shorts. And nobody in Cintas is telling them, why can I open the door? UPS does it.
Right.
Nobody. But in the church, this is what we live by. But the church up there does. Because when it comes to work, we mature. But when it comes to church, we immature. Because when it comes to work, this is just man working. But when we come to church, but his mom said he could do it. What can I go? Can I go to the river with Johnny? No. Why not? It's dangerous. But Johnny mama said it.
They do it all the time.
And then you get that dumb answer. Well, Johnny's mom is not your mom. I'm your mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you get the dumbest of them all because I said so. Which only work when they're to a certain age. After that, it's just like, and then
When they were 6.
and then after a while, you have no choice. Even when they're 20, and you go, okay, enough, because I said I don't want to do this. Kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's after a conversation. It's not, Anyways, we digress. I'm just telling you that the church nowadays has become just a free for all.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I don't think that I'm religion is because although I have things that I do and things that I don't do, those things that I do and those things that I don't do is for my relationship with God. Not because my religion tells me otherwise. because there are some things that the religion of Christianity and Pentecost, or at least the Pentecostal ones, tell you that you should do or you shouldn't do, that I do or don't do. Because you don't have any basis biblically to tell me not to do that.
Yeah.
And if I don't do it just because the pastor tells me without any biblical teachings, then I'm religious. I'm a blind soldier following. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I think it's getting kind of late. I don't know what time it is. I know we've been at it for a while, but I'm going to leave it there. You know, people got comments and questions. I will address them. I know that we don't have, like I said, we don't have that many people. We're cool with it. I mean, listen, people that are watching this right now, we have no problem in recording podcasts without a live audience. We have no problem. We can sit down and have these conversations and just record it. We have absolute no problem doing that. The only reason why we do it live was because in case people have questions or whatever. And if we start noticing that we don't have enough live audiences there, then we might just decide it's not, you know, we sometimes have things that we can do.
Right.
You know, we can just record a podcast on a Sunday or on a Saturday or on Wednesday or on whatever day or Monday at noon and then upload it at, you know, it doesn't matter. But, you know, we try to give you guys a time to ask your questions and or write a comment. If none of those happens, then we decide what we're going to do in the future. So, I don't know. You have anything else to say?
No, sir.
You got anything else you want to say?
No, sir.
Well, I don't have anything else to say other than aspire to be a relational Christian, and stay away from becoming religious. However, don't waste your time arguing with somebody whether you're religious or not. Ask, what's your definition of religious? For me, religious people is to believe God. Then I'm that. For me, religious people is to go to church. Okay, then I'm that. For me, religious people is people that follow the laws of some kind of religion. Let's talk about that, because I don't think I'm that. I don't follow rules. I'm married. My wife don't have rules.
Right.
I don't have rules. There are things I don't do that my wife doesn't like. That's not a rule. That's something my wife doesn't like. So I don't do it because she doesn't like it. It's not a rule. And I don't wish I could do it. She don't like it. I don't do it because she don't like it. The same thing the other way, but it's not a rule.
Right.
You know, I hate this marriage thing and rules. I hate this whole marriage thing where, you know, you can't talk to her. Like, what kind of rule is that? How can that be a rule? Like, you proposed to her. You told her you're the one that I want. And now but, you know, I still want to talk to other people. Then you're not ready for you got commitment issues. Like, let it go.
Evidently, yep.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Just do what you need to do. All right, everybody. I don't think I have anything else to say. If you have any questions or anything, I would suggest that you can write the comments or ask the questions, and we're always here for you. For you guys that are still live with us, I greatly appreciate it. For those that are seeing this recorded, thank you. If by this time you're still here, that means you watched the whole thing, and we appreciate it. That being said, this is the Talk About It podcast, where we just let you know that there's no reason to keep it in and, you know, have all these questions just, you know, mess with your mind and mess with your peace. When in reality, you got to do is, you know, just talk about it. So thank you very much. I hope that you have a good night, and we'll probably see you never because I don't see you, but you'll see me and this guys probably next week. So thank you for your time. Have a good evening, everybody, and be safe out there.